හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Tuesday the 26th of December 2023. Waves of tears. Sri Lanka commemorates the lives lost to sea during the tragic tsunami 19 years ago today. Assurance. Health Secretary and the NMRA reveals plans to avoid medicine shortages in the country within the coming few weeks. Says no to delays.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
නියම මෝල්ට් සාරය සමග මැලිබන් මෝල්ට් දැන් රුපියල් 750ක් පමණයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now 19 years ago today, 35,000 Sri Lankans woke up one last time. At around 9:26 a.m. local time, the very ocean that the country owes so much to decided to take everything away from so many people. A 9.1 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Sumatra ripped several unforgiving tsunami waves across the Indian Ocean, hitting Sri Lanka, Indonesia, India, Thailand and the Maldives. However, even after 19 years, the memory of that catastrophe opens up so many painful memories in most of us. Here is a report by AdaDerana as we take you across the coasts of Sri Lanka and around the island where many today commemorated their loved ones and all victims lost to the sea on that fateful day in 2004.
19 years ago today, Sri Lankans woke up to a tragedy. Never have Sri Lankans ever experienced the wrath of the ocean as they did on Boxing Day in 2004. On that fateful day, an undersea earthquake of magnitude 9.1 on the Richter scale struck off the coast of Sumatra, triggering a tsunami. The strongest of the tsunami waves, which amassed near the island of Sumatra at around 6:58 am, reached Sri Lanka in 2 hours at a speed of 800 kilometers per hour. Sri Lanka was impacted at around 9:26 am. Massive waves claimed the life of over 35,000 Sri Lankans and destroyed property worth millions within a matter of minutes. The ruthless tides wreaked away unforgiving havoc, sparing none who stood in its way. A staggering 230,000 lives across Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, the Maldives and Thailand were claimed by the tragic tsunami. In memory of everyone who lost their lives to the ocean that day, Sri Lankans embraced the tradition of observing a 2-minute silence each year on the 26th of December. This year too, a 2-minute silence was observed from 9:25 am to 9:27 am.
මම ඒ අවස්ථාව වෙනකොට ආපදා කළමනාකරණ මධ්‍යස්ථානයේ සහකාර අධ්‍යක්ෂවරයා විශාලා මහනුවර පිළිබඳව අපි බණ පොතේ අහලා තිබ්බට මම දැක්කා රෝහල් ආසන්නයේ එලිමහන් ප්‍රදේශවල මලමිනී තුනී කරලා තියෙනවා එකතු කරලා ගෙනල්ලා ඕජස් ගලන මලමිනී බදාගෙන සොකීය ඥාතීන් වැළපෙන ආකාරය මට සියසින් දුටුවා සංඛ්‍යාලයකන එකතු කරන සුදුසු තත්ත්වයක් තිබෙන්නේ රටේ අවසානයේදී අපි මේ ඉලක්කමට මුද්‍රා තැබුවා මාසෙකමාරකට විතර පස්සේ 35000ක් මිය ගියපු අය හැටියටත් 5000ක් අතුරුදහන් හැටියටත්
19 years ago in 2004, 1,270 unsuspecting individuals were travelling by train as the waves hit the tracks at Paralia. 144 individuals still remain unaccounted for. Honouring their memory, a special train was operated from the Colombo Fort railway station to Beliata today. The engine of the train, which felt the brunt of the waves in 2004, was used for the special train service operated today. The train stopped at the Paralia railway station for around 10 minutes for the people to pay their respects and place floral tributes at the Paralia Tsunami Memorial statue. The sea may have washed their lives away, but their memory remains fresh in our hearts. In the meantime, Abhilash Jayaraj, widely known as Baby 81, who claimed international fame now, is 19 years old. Abhilash, who was subsequently rescued, was washed away by the tsunami waves at the tender age of just 2 months. 9 sets of parents came forward to claim him, and following a lengthy battle, his parents finally secured parental custody of baby Abhilash. Abhilash, together with his family, paid respects to those who lost their lives to the ocean in 2004.
Now, in other news, in light of concerns surrounding the lack of medicine in hospitals around the island, Secretary to the Ministry of Health Dr. Palita Mahipala claims that authority and funds have been granted individually to hospitals to replenish stocks of medicine in short supply. Meanwhile, Chairman of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority Dr. Ananda Vijayavikrama points out that the country cannot afford any delays in the import and distribution of medicine island-wide.
සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශයේ ඖෂධ නියාමන අධිකාරිය සතිපතා සමාලෝචනයක් කරනවා ඖෂධ තිබෙන ප්‍රමාණය පිළිබඳව අඩු ඖෂධ කුමක්ද කියන එක පිළිබඳව ප්‍රධාන රෝහල් වශයෙන් සහ දිස්ත්‍රික්ක වශයෙන්. ඒ වගේම අඩු ඖෂධ රෝහල් මට්ටමින් මිලදී ගැනීම සඳහා අවශ්‍ය බලය සහ මුදල් ප්‍රතිපාදනත් ප්‍රධාන රෝහල් වෙත ලබා දීලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ වගේම වරායට පැමිණෙන ඖෂධ වරායෙන් නිදහස් කර ගැනීම සඳහා ඒ වගේම අවශ්‍ය අනිකුත් කටයුතු සඳහා විශේෂ සම්බන්ධීකාරක කමිටුවක් සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශය මගින් පිහිටවලා තිබෙනවා. එය වෛද්‍ය සැපීම් අධ්‍යක්ෂතුමාගේ ප්‍රධානත්වයෙන් අමාත්‍යාංශයෙන් එක් නිලධාරියෙකුත් රාජ්‍ය ඖෂධ සංස්ථාව, රාජ්‍ය ඖෂධ නීතිගත සංස්ථාව සහ ජාතික ඖෂධ නියාමන අධිකාරියේ සමාජිකයෙක් ඇතුළුව එක කණ්ඩායමක් සම්බන්ධීකරණ කමිටුවක් වශයෙන් පත් කරලා තිබෙනවා. එයත් හෙට සිට ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඒ හරහා අපේ අරමුණ තමයි කිසිම අපහසුවකින් තොරව මේ ඖෂධ වරායට පැමිණෙන ඖෂධ බෙදා හැරීම සඳහා අවශ්‍ය මූලික කටයුතු වඩාත් ශක්තිමත් කිරීම.
ඖෂධ නිදහස් කර ගැනීම සඳහා පසුගිය සති අන්තය වන විට අනුමැතිය ලබා දීලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ පිළිබඳ සමහර ලිපි දැන්ටත් නිකුත් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ලිපි හෙට නිකුත් කරන්නට පුළුවන්. ඒ නිසා ඖෂධ වරායේ හිරවීමක් හෝ ඖෂධ ගෙනීමේ ප්‍රමාදයක් හෝ සිදුවන්නට කිසිම ඉඩකඩක් ඇතිවන්නේ නැහැ. ලබන සතිය සහ ඊළඟ සතිය වෙන විට.
Now, the Criminal Investigation Department recorded a statement from the former Minister of Health, Kehelia Ramukwella, on the controversial purchase of substandard medicine known as human immunoglobulin. The statement was recorded at his residence today, subsequent to the request made by the minister voluntarily to submit documents and video evidence related to the ongoing investigation into the matter.
6 people, including former Secretary to the Ministry of Health Janakashri Chandragupta, the Director of the Medicine Supplies Division of the Ministry of Health, and the owner of the company which allegedly imported the substandard vials of human immunoglobulin, are currently in remand custody. Amidst those developments, former Health Minister Kehelia Ramukwella made a request to submit key pieces of evidence in support of the investigation to the investigating officers. The request, made through President's Counsel U.R. De Silva, addressed to the Director of the Criminal Investigations Department, revealed the existences of several documents, video footage and other material evidence important to the ongoing investigation. Accordingly, a group of CID investigators arrived at the minister's official residence in Colombo today. According to the reports, the minister voluntarily handed over the documents and files as previously mentioned, and also provided a written and verbal statement to the CID investigators at his residence.
මේ ඖෂධ ගනුදෙනුව සම්බන්ධයෙන් පළවෙනි පැමිණිල්ල අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නේ ගරු අමාත්‍යවරයාගේ උපදේශ පරිදි අමාත්‍යවරයාගේ උපදේශකවරයා. එය මෙම නඩු වාර්තාවේ පැහැදිලිව සඳහන් වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා අද දවසේදී ස්වේච්ඡාවෙන් අමාත්‍යතුමාගේ ඉල්ලීම පරිදි අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ වැඩිදුර ප්‍රකාශයක් සඳහන් කරේ. මතක තියාගන්න මේක මේ ආරයිත් පාර්ශවයන් හඳුන්වා දෙන විදිහට අමාත්‍යවරයා චුදිතයෙක් කියලා එහෙම නැත්නම් අමාත්‍යවරයා සැකකාරයෙක් කියලා කරපු ප්‍රශ්න කිරීමක් නෙමෙයි. අනිකුත් කාරණේ තමයි අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවට ලිඛිතව ගරු අමාත්‍යවරයා ඉදිරිපත් කරා මේ ඖෂධ සැපයුම් කරුට ඒ ගෙවීම් නතර කරන්න කියලා මේ සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශයේ දැනට අත්අඩංගුවට ගත්ත නිලධාරීන්ට අමාත්‍යවරයා විසින් විධානය කරායින් පස්සේ මේ පුද්ගලයා ගරු අමාත්‍යතුමාට තර්ජනය කරනවා ටෙන්ඩර් පටිපාටියෙන් මාව තෝරගෙන තියෙනවා මම සපයපු ඖෂධ වලට මට ගෙවන්න නැතුව ඉන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා ප්‍රශ්න කරනවා සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යවරයාගේ.
Now, taking you to some geopolitics, former Minister of State of the Indian Ministry of External Affairs M.J. Akbar says India still honors peace agreements that were signed in the late 80s between India and China, which have prevented them from waging war against each other. However, he emphasized that India is cautious of China's relationship with India's neighbors, as China is suspected to prey on weaker countries in the region. Speaking at a webinar organized by the Pathfinder Foundation, the former state minister added that despite issues in the Indo-Chinese relationship, he expects bilateral ties between India and Sri Lanka to be strengthened in the near future.
The adverse bilateral relations between India and China impact negatively on the relations South Asian countries have with China. For example, occasional visits of Chinese vessels have caused considerable concern to India. Are China and India actively working towards a political settlement to their border dispute, or are they in a permanent stalemate stage?
They were not really holiday cruise ships. These Chinese vessels were packed with electronic equipment, which is picking up a fundamental requirement of strategic interest, which is knowledge from below, knowledge from above. And I think to the north, in the Himalayas, where our conflicts with China really take on a very harsh reality, we are still honoring an agreement made in the late 80s, which is peace and stability are more important actually than a resolution of what is possibly irresolvable. I really think that is one of the most mature, and that is why it has lasted. There has been tension on the border, but yet there has not been gunfire. There are elements in Beijing who do not believe in the axiom upon which we agreed, which is that let sleeping borders lie. Regrettably, Beijing has elements which are tempted by hegemony. Even as we talk, satellites are picking up Beijing's literal acquisition of land along the Bhutan border, confident that Bhutan does not have the capacity to respond. Beijing does have people who want to prey upon weaker neighbors. They've now told Pakistan that the defense equipment you bought, you haven't paid for. Behind all these smiles, the death trap always hovers like a noose with the best of friends. I mean, we really can learn from the positive experience of India-China relationships, which is try and keep the negativities under control. And I think at least as far as India and Sri Lanka are concerned, we do not have any great problems of this nature to resolve. I really think that the options between our two countries are really waiting to blossom. Every country has concerns based on its own experience. The fact of the matter is that India and China are still theoretically, not theoretically, in real terms, engaged in a military conflict, which has not been resolved because the border has not been resolved, right? So we have special concerns. You had special concerns about the sanctuary that was provided by people who waged a war against the Sri Lankan state. It's not the same as the concerns that you might express in relationship with other countries, whether it is Thailand or whether it is Canada. We still have a problem with Canada, right? And we have to recognize that when you have a problem with Canada, we must urge Canada not to help any terrorist activity. That is what friendship is about. Are you just another country for us? No. You're a neighbor, and a very valued neighbor, and a neighbor which we have ancient linkages. So just as you would expect us legitimately to show concern for your concerns, similarly, we would expect you to show concerns for our concerns.
Now, taking you back to some local politics, leader of the Mabima Janata Party, Dilip Jayavira, highlighted that Sri Lankans must understand the importance of the Sinhala Buddhist civilization in order to rebuild the country. He made the statement speaking at an event in Anuradhapura over the weekend.
Leader of the Mabima Janata Party, Dilip Jayavira, paid homage to the sacred Jai Sri Mahabodhi over the weekend. A special Pirit chanting ceremony was organised at the Jai Sri Mahabodhi premises on behalf of Dilip Jayavira, and an alms giving was also organised for 11 monks. Thereafter, Jayavira arrived at the MOH office of Mahavilachya, where 50 expecting mothers were presented with essential equipment. Meanwhile, he also donated desks and chairs to 300 students and 15 teachers of the Sri Prema Alankaradama School of the Sri Sudarshana Ramaraja Mahaviharya of Anuradhapura.
ළමයෙකුට අවශ්‍ය වීජ ගණිතයද එතකොට ජ්‍යාමිතියද භූගෝලයද එහෙම නැත්නම් සමාජ අධ්‍යයනයද ළමයි දැනගත යුත්තේ ආවර්තිතා වගුවද එහෙම නැත්නම් චක්‍රයේද මේ සියල්ල ගැන ඇත්තටම ආපහු හැරලා බැලුවොත් හාමුදුරනේ මේ කිසිවක් නොදැන සතුටින් ජීවත් වෙන්නට පුළුවන්. පූර්ණ මිනිසෙක් වෙන්න නම් වඩා වැදගත් වෙන්නේ මේ යහපත්කම. මේ රට කවදා හරි ගොඩ එනවා නම් ගොඩ එන්නේ අපේ හාමුදුරනේ මේ රටේ තෙල් ලැබිලවත් මේ රටේ ගෑස් ලැබිලවත් මේ රටේ වෙන ඉල්ලමක් පෑදිලවත් නෙමෙයි මේ රටේ ජනතාවට කවදා හරි මේ සිංහල බෞද්ධ සભ્યත්වයේ වටිනාකම ඒ ආකාරයෙන් තේරුම් අරගෙන ඒ සભ્યත්වයේ තියෙන මේ බුදුදහමේ කියන සරල සංකල්ප ටික තේරුම් ගත්ත දාට පමණයි.
Now in other local news, a fire which broke out at a store on Armour Street destroyed all items in stock within the building. However, no casualties were reported. In the meantime, Jaffna police raided 3 illegal alcohol distilleries and made 3 arrests. With that, let's take a look at more developments around the island in brief.
A fire broke out in a store selling hardware and home decor items at Green Lane on Armour Street this morning. All items in store at the building have been destroyed by the fire, which broke out at around 8:30 a.m. this morning. The Colombo Fire Brigade took steps to extinguish the flames. 4 fire engines were deployed for the purpose. However, no individuals were injured in the incident as the store was closed at the time. In the meantime, the Jaffna police raided an illegally operating alcohol distillery in the Kasturividya area in Jaffna yesterday. One suspect was apprehended following the raid. In another operation in Jaffna, the police were able to discover 2 other illegal alcohol distilleries. 2 suspects were apprehended in connection to the distillery. In other news, a timekeeper of the Hanwala Colombo Fort 143 bus route was run over by a bus operating on the same route yesterday. The timekeeper reportedly died on the spot after being run over by the bus. The tragic accident was recorded on a nearby CCTV camera. Meanwhile, a decision was taken by the Presidential Secretariat to cease the maintenance of the itukama.lk website, which was initially employed for awareness and fundraising during the COVID-19 pandemic. Following the successful containment of the virus, the website's operation concluded on the 28th of October 2022. At present, only a record of advertisements and funds related to the initiative are available on the website. The Presidential Secretariat has issued a cautionary notice advising the public to remain vigilant against potential misuses of the website given the dormant status of the website.
Welcome back. Now, data from the Ceylon Tea Brokers Association showed that Sri Lanka's tea exports in November 2023, including re-exports, amounted to 21.46 million kilograms, up 11.33% from a year ago, despite a fall in production. In the 11 months to November this year, tea exports amounted to 221.1 million kilograms, down 9.73 million kilograms, or 4.21% from the corresponding period a year ago. Export earnings were recorded at $1.196 billion, slightly up from $1.16 billion last year. Meanwhile, tea production fell 3.2% from a year ago to 19.58 million kilograms, while output for the 11 months was up 1.6% from the last year. In the month of November, export value was estimated at $112.8 million, up $1.05 million a year earlier. The average export price was estimated at $5.26 a kilo, down $5.48 last month. Iraq was the top buyer of the Ceylon tea, purchasing 30.5 million kilos up to November, followed by Turkey and Russia. Now, oil extended gains today, finding support from geopolitical tensions in the Middle East and investor optimism that the US Federal Reserve would soon start cutting interest rates, boosting global economic growth and fuel demand.
Brent crude futures were up by $1.19 at $80.26 a barrel by 1:13 a.m. GMT. US West Texas Intermediate crude rose by 94 cents to $74.50. Analysts claim that the lack of oil supply disruptions are offsetting the support to prices from ongoing geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, adding that the trade was thin and in a narrow range typical of holiday periods. Volume is light due to some markets are closed for public holidays. Both oil benchmarks registered gains of about 3% last week after Houthi attacks on ships disrupted global shipping and trade, while the Israel-Hamas conflict shows no sign of easing. Shipping companies had stopped sending vessels through the Red Sea and imposed surcharges for rerouting ships. The Red Sea connects with the Suez Canal, a major shipping route used for about 12% of global trade. According to the UN nuclear watchdog, Iran has reversed a months-long slowdown in the rate at which it is enriching uranium up to 60% purity, close to weapons grade. Oil also found support from expectations that the Fed will cut interest rates next year. Lower interest rates cut consumer borrowing costs, which can boost economic growth and oil demand.
Now, in your corporate developments, Sri Lanka's leading land and house seller Primelands Residencies decides to change its company secretariat effective from the 1st of January onwards. Meanwhile, Golface Capital Partners and CT Land Development disclosed dealings by its directors during the recent trading days. With that, let's take a look at the corporate news segment for the evening. Primelands Residencies in a statement said that the board of directors of the company by written resolution appointed SSP Corporate Services as the company's new company secretary. Primelands said the decision is effective from the 1st of January 2024. Accordingly, the present company secretaries, Pele Consulting, have tendered their resignation as secretaries of the company with effect from the same day. Meanwhile, Golface Capital Partners PLC revealed that its executive chairman S.V. Rajaya disclosed to the board of the Golface Capital Partners the sale of ordinary shares worth 52.1 million rupees to Joella Ceylon Private Limited. S.V. Rajaya also serves as a director of Joella Ceylon Private Limited. Similarly, CT Land Development in a statement informed that Senthilva Holdings has purchased 4,513 ordinary shares of the company. The statement said the dealing took place last week at 24 rupees per share to Senthilva Holdings. And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of AdaDerana First at 9. Stay in touch with us on www.adaderana.lk for the latest developments around the clock. Thank you. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.